Alright, hi everybody, my name is Jana Brown and I'm an alcoholic. Know where to sit this, it'll be fine right there. Thanks Steve for asking me to speak. I've got some familiar faces here with me, Michelle and Susie, which is always super helpful. Appreciate the support, and like Steve said, I'm from Mechanicsville. I've never driven this far to speak before, and I'm a little nervous, but hopefully I'll settle in here in a few. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. If you're new, welcome. Glad you're here. And I have a home group, and it's in Richmond, Virginia. It's called Into Action. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you ever find yourself in the Richmond area, come see us. It's called Into Action, 7 o'clock Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's a great meeting, and it's been a super special place to serve and be a part of. I have a sobriety date. It's March 27th, 2021. I have a sponsor who I work really hard to stay current with. She does live in North Carolina, which makes it a little difficult, but we try to get together face-to-face once a month, and we talk all the time on the phone. Also, I have the honor and the privilege of working with other girls, and I'm always available to sponsor. And I think, and I always have a girl that I'm in the literature with and working with. So like Steve said, I'm from Mechanicsville. That's where I was born. I have a mom and dad. I had an older sister who is 3 years older than me, and an older brother who is 13 months older than me, and had a really big, close-knit family. My parents did a really good job of raising us and showing us love and setting us up for success. On the first day of school, we always had everything we needed. We had, the fresh outfits for school and the fresh book bags, and they did a really good job of loving us and being there for us. They're just really good parents. We did the beach trip, the ski trips. We had cousins we hung out with. We went to church on Sundays. We would suit up and show up for church, showing you Christmas and Easter and special occasions like that. But it was no real, other than that, no real relationship with God. But they tried and did the best they could. They did the very best they could. Trying to describe myself as a child, I was just this. I was really big into sports. I was an all-star softball player, an all-star basketball player, and just really super competitive. I always had to win. I always had to win, no matter what. It was like there was just this piece of me that, to try to describe it, this piece of me that I had to show up and be better than you. I had to beat you, and everything, because really underneath all of that, I felt really less than and super insecure. So it was almost like I had to make up for it. If you were on the baseball field and you hit one home run, I had to hit two. If you were gonna score this many points in the basketball game, I had to double that. Just super competitive, because I just had this need of always needing to feel like I had to prove that I was better than you, because really deep down underneath I felt very less than, not as good as everybody else, and a lot of fear of what other people's perspective of me was what other people thought of me. And when I was 13 years old, no, I was 12 years old, my parents were throwing a big New Year's Eve party at their house, and I had my sister had some of her friends over, my brother had some of his friends over, my family had their people over, and everybody was going to be drinking and partying, and me and my buddy knew that there was going to be vodka hidden under my sister's bed. So we had planned. We knew it was going to be there. We had planned all along that that's what we were going to do. We were going to get a hold of that vodka at some point that night. And then when the moment presented itself, which was early on in the night, we just grabbed each other's hand and army crawled, and we grabbed that bottle from under the bed, and we took the top off, and me and my friend we started chugging it, and immediately I felt an effect produced. The drink did something to and for me. All of that fear of what everybody else thought of me, or it just went away, and it was just like, man, like this is has that warm fuzzy feeling, like it lit me up, and it was like, this is it, like this is the answer to all of my problems. And I felt like that, but it was for a very, very short amount of time. I was 12 and I'm chugging straight Absolute vodka, so I ended up getting really sick, and it's just, wow, like we're hanging out my bedroom window, we're trying to get a hold of other things at that point, and it's just we were a mess, and I had some guys over, and I'm like making out with every guy in the house, but it just it didn't matter. It was just an awesome time there for that little time frame. It was really good, and then I blacked out. I got really sick, and my mom knew something was going on, so she runs upstairs and she's like banging on the door trying to figure out what's going on, and I end up throwing up, and she comes through the door and I jump in it to try to hide it, and it was just like it was such in front of all of my friends. It was such a disaster. It was such a disaster. The next day I was sick for like a couple days after. That's how hungover I was. I was grounded. I was grounded for life. The whole shebang. It was just, it's just into a lot of trouble, which is kind of like how my drinking always led me. It was just a lot of trouble, but it didn't matter. Shortly after that, I couldn't wait to do it again. And I knew that I was going to do it again. And from that point on, it was like I would scheme to get together with my friends to come up with a plan. Yeah, I'm in the 8th grade. Come up with a plan to get beer, get somebody older to buy us booze, and we would plan, and we would go. I would lie to my parents. We're going to the movies, and we'd get dropped off at the movies. We'd get scooped up by somebody older, or we would just ask somebody random, like sketchy looking dude in the parking lot to just like take us to our destination, and just stuff like that. Just like that's what my life centered around, was those moments on the weekends, just trying to drink with my friends. And even by the springtime 8th grade, getting busted drinking on other schools' campuses off after school hours, and just a lot of trouble. Got busted by the cops. I'm getting charges for drinking, and a lot of trouble with school, and in school suspension and out of school suspension, and just a lot of consequences as a result of my drinking. And I go on to from middle school into high school, and it's just from middle school just to going into high school, things are starting to get worse. But like I said, I was really involved in sports, and I had a lot of coaches, and being involved in sports kept me in school. I mean, like I wasn't even showing up for class. I'm skipping school and having a hard time to show up even this early on, but because of sports, I always managed to find a way to get through. And just to give you another example of my behavior through in high school is, I can remember skipping school one day with the same friend I drank the vodka with. We left school and we went home, and my mom had just had a 40th birthday party, and so there was a lot of booze at my house, and so we skipped school and nobody was there, so we go in and we drink like all of the booze that was at my house. And then we're like, oh crap, like what are we gonna do? Like nobody's, so I staged my parents' house like somebody had broken in, and then we just left. And then my mom comes home and she's like calling the cops, and like I'm even trying to help her figure out who broke into our house and drank all of the booze, and it was me the whole time. Again, that was the kind of behavior. And I can remember going to softball practice. We would get out of softball practice and we would go to the Bahamas Snow Shack in Mechanicsville, like with the flavored shaved ice, and we would get probably a big cup like that size of the ice and dump half of it out and then fill the other half with Everclear and just drink that. I can remember riding around with my buddy in her Celica, and the captain of the softball team was eating at Applebee's with her boyfriend, and we roll up to Applebee's and her car's unlocked with the keys in it, so we jump out of her car and we're wasted, steal the captain of the softball team's car, and we start driving her car around town, and we come back to Applebee's and we roll up just completely hammered in her car, and she's just standing there like ready to fight us, and I get out of the car and I punch the girl's car that I stole. It was just like, I mean, that's just the way that I rolled and roared through people's life, and ended up being able, because of sports, was able to graduate high school and get a high school diploma. I mean, I think if it was for sports, I don't even think that would have happened. And even in that time frame, I'm already trying to control the drinking. Like, it's a huge problem at home, and everybody's always questioning me about my drinking, and just like if I can just not drink liquor and just drink beer, I'll be okay. But I would drink like 24 beers. Like nothing that I tried to do to try to control my drinking really was able to stop me. And but I ended up graduating high school, and I'm just still like such a mess. And my parents just like, they just didn't even know what to do with me. But they had this plan that they were going to send me to Methodist University in Fayetteville, North Carolina, to go and play basketball. I was required at that point to take a religious class there when I went, and I was going to be on the basketball team. So they thought that this was going to be like a really great opportunity for me to go and get an education. And Methodist supposed to be a dry campus, so they were like, go. They thought this was, and I thought so too at that point. Like, this is my opportunity to go out and grow up and get a degree and make something of my life. And getting out of Mechanicsville and going to Fayetteville was going to be like my big ticket. And that's not what happened. I left for school, and what happened was I ended up failing all of my other classes except for my religious class, and getting a DUI. And then towards the last semester that I was there, after 2 years of being there, I mean, I couldn't even show up. I couldn't show up, and my parents, they brought me back home, and I'm back home, and I can't hold a job. I can't show up to work. I can't do anything. I mean, I'm just at home at mom and dad's. And one night I got really drunk, and I don't even remember what happened. I blacked out, and my parents, they found me, and I have this huge scar on my arm. I was really injured, and they're like, what the heck is going on? I mean, like, they just went to a Christmas party and came back, and I'm just like, incoherent. And so they end up taking me to the hospital, and they take me to this hospital, and they're talking to these doctors. They're like, we don't know what to do with her. Like, she starts drinking and she can't stop. Like, can you please help us? And the doctors they just let me. Nobody knew what to do with me. Like, they just let me go. My mom's still mad. She's like, they just let you walk out. And she was like, I was just such a burden and just such a problem, and I couldn't stop drinking. And after that incident, I come home and they had talked to some other people too, and they had suggested for me to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm 20 years old at this point, and they take me to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in Mechanicsville, and I went to AA for about a year, and I just be honest, I didn't get a sponsor, I didn't get a home group, I didn't work any steps, and I wasn't able to stay sober. But what happened is I discovered that if I was able to take a lot of Adderall and a lot of Xanax and smoke a lot of weed, I could set the drink aside for a brief amount of time. And a lot of time that my parents, they didn't care because they were just like, whatever, at least she's not drinking. So I went on like that for a long time, and I started to go back to church, and I think in those moments, like I maybe was starting to build a relationship with God and talk to God some, and I met a guy named Josh, and we started dating. He's my husband today, and about 3 years after we were dating, I'm at my house one day, and I walk outside, and I'm 24 at this point. I walk outside, and my dad's had been cutting the grass, and I walk outside, and he's laying on his back and had passed away from a heart attack, and just like that. And like my dad he was my very best friend, and he was my rock. He was my superhero. He was everything to me. And in that moment, it was just like any kind of belief in God that I had previously had prior to that, I walked away from in that moment. And it was just like, if you were to tell me that, I just couldn't believe that if God loved me, like everybody says, oh, God loves you. If he loved me at all, like there's just no way that God would have allowed that to happen. And I did, I walked away from God in that moment, and things just continued to get worse, and I'm just still just such a mess with my relationships were just, I mean, if you had a friendship or a relationship with me, it was only a matter of time before some way, somehow, by my behavior, I was just bound to be destructive and hurt you some way, That's just the way I roared through people's lives, and end up getting, for some reason, this guy Josh asked me to marry him, and we end up we get married and having a child together. And I can remember I was pregnant, and I come home to tell my mom I'm about to have a baby, like not about to have a baby, but I'm pregnant and I'm going to. And she was just like, oh my gosh, like, no. Like that's like, usually that's like something like really an exciting like news to share. I'm gonna cry. Exciting news to share with your mom, but that just in that time wasn't my experience. So now I'm married and I have a child, and I can't stay sober, and there's moments when my drinking's getting really bad, and my husband's taking me he's dropping me off at the steps of inpatient 30-day inpatient, and I'm going through there, and in moments I felt like I was all in, like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna, when I get out of here, I'm gonna do the IOP program, and I'm talking to people, and I have numbers, and I'm calling people, but I mean, I'm not sitting in an AA meeting, and I'm not going through the book, I'm not working any steps, I don't have a sponsor, definitely not involved in any kind of home group. And I would get halfway through my IOP, and I would go home, and I would walk out the door and go get drunk. I mean, like, it was just like, I was, as bad as I didn't want to drink, I had to. I was drinking against my will. And as much as my husband or my mom she would sleep with her purse under her pillow, or if she had to go to the bathroom in her own home, like she would have to take her purse into the bathroom with her. It was just, just cry and just beg me, to just stop. And I couldn't. And as bad as I wholeheartedly wanted to, I was always walking out the door to get the next drink. And once it entered my body, it was just, there was just no stopping me. I mean, I would pass out with the alcohol in my hands spilling over me, because I would drink until I couldn't stop once I started. I mean, like, I physically could not stop once I started drinking. And so I have, like I said, I have this child and this husband, and I'm getting other DUIs. All of these consequences and stuff are happening to me, and none of them are sufficient enough to keep me from drinking again. And I'm at home one day, and I have my child with me, and my husband's at work, and I put my daughter in a wagon to go down to the pond in the neighborhood for whatever reason. But I was completely wasted. I just took my daughter, who's 2 at this time, and put her in the wagon and go down to the pond. And there's a big hill that leads down to the pond, and I had her strapped in to the wagon, and I turned my back on her, and that wagon with my daughter on it starts to roll down towards the pond. And all I can remember is looking back and seeing the rocks had stopped her from going into the water. So she was flipped over, the wagon was flipped over with her in it on the rocks. And I can just remember thinking, oh my gosh, and seeing that and getting her and getting, I don't even really remember going back to the house. I just kind of remember coming to on the couch, and I had a picture from my husband of my daughter with her face really bruised, and she can't, and my husband's like, how could you do this to me? And yeah, I was just like, I couldn't even explain it. I mean, I just didn't know what was wrong with me, and nobody else did either. And so that happened, and my family gets together, and there was a lot of little mini interventions they would get me cornered into, and they surround me, and they're like, what's going on? Like, don't mess. My cousin was like, she's I don't want to cuss at the podium, but she's that cousin that nobody wants to cross. So she's like, tell me what's going on, be honest with me. And I was just like, I'm just drinking. I had no answer. I had no answer. And so she's like, she puts me into her van and was like, I'm taking you to an AA meeting, and I'm dropping you off at the door, and you're not getting a ride home until you get a sponsor. And I was like, as at this time, I still didn't have a license. And I was just like, okay. So I get in the van with her, and she takes me to an AA meeting, and she lets me out the door, and I walk into this AA meeting, and I saw this lady there, and I asked her to be my sponsor. So I get it back into the, flag my cousin down, and I'm like, hey, I got a sponsor, I'm gonna get a ride home. And she gives me a ride home. She gives me a ride home that day, and I met with this woman, and she invited me over to her house, and I went over there, and she had started to read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous to me, and I was just like, I had no idea what's going on. I had never heard of anything like that. Like, she's reading line by line to me, and I'm just like, I just really don't believe in this moment. I was done. I still had some tricks up my sleeve that I felt like I needed to try before fully conceding that, I'm an alcoholic and I need to do AA for the rest of my life. And so I continued down this path of destruction, and I can't stay sober. I can pull together, 3 months, but I'm always going back out, and I just don't think in that moment I was done. And then this woman that had tried to work with me and get me through the steps had been at the Healing Transitions in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she had given me other late women's numbers to call that I tried to call, and I would start working with some women and ask them to sponsor me, and I was doing a lot of a lot of meditating, a lot of hiking, it almost felt like I was going and celebrating everybody else's anniversaries except for my own. I just, I was doing everything but AA, and I just could never stay sober. But I couldn't understand why this girl that shared her experience, she was really bad. I didn't understand how she was able to stay sober. So when they gave me a job, and I don't suggest giving somebody in the rooms a job, because it was only a matter of time before I'm walking through that job just completely sideways and just a wreck. And one day we're driving to Charlottesville after one of my episodes, and she's like, I was begging this woman to sponsor me, and she was just not willing to do it. She was just like, you're such a disaster, like absolutely not. I'm not going to sponsor you. And there was a lot of other people I was asking to sponsor me too in Mechanicsville, but none of them were willing to sponsor me either, because they just thought they'll sponsor me and then I'm going to go out and drink again. And nobody was willing to. I mean, I was just like, man, I can't even do AA, right? What is wrong with me? This is awful. I was just so beside myself, and just completely just hopeless. AA's not even going to work for me. And so she says, well, why don't you just try calling this lady? And she gives me this woman's number. It's just Susie Donahue. And I was like, all right. I can remember going home after getting this lady's number, and I went to my room, and it was just me and God in that room, really. I mean, there was nobody on my back. There was nobody dropping me off in an AA meeting. There was nobody demanding I get a sponsor. I don't even think my husband knew I was going into the room to call this woman. I mean, I wanted to change, and honestly, in my mind, I was just like, this is it. If I can't get sober this one last time, then I don't know what would have happened. But like I said, I was just completely hopeless, and I had a moment of clarity and a moment with God, and I picked up the phone and I called this woman I didn't even know, and she answered. And I asked her if she'd help me. And she said yes. She said she would help me. And I can remember her telling me, don't you mess with me. There's a lot of other women I could be helping right now. Don't waste my time. And just nobody had ever talked to me like that before. I was just like, okay. I'm all in. Just like I wasn't, always just all in. And she said, but I had something to latch on to this time. And she asked me 3 questions. She said, are you willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? And I said, yes. And she said, are you done? And I was like, yes. I mean, I'm like, dear God, I hope so. And and she's like, are you willing to go to any links in Alcoholics Anonymous? And I'm like, yes, I am. And like I said, I had that moment of clarity, and I really think that there was times before that I may have had that moment of clarity, but I had something to latch onto. I mean, we immediately started to go through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous really fast. We started to meet on the phone 3, sometimes 4 times a week. We would get on the phone, and this lady, she started to spend time with me and take me through the steps. She made me write out my first step. We looked at my history of drinking, and I mean, it was just so clear that I was unmanageable and powerlessness. But it's she showed me through the literature what that meant. She pointed out the mental blank spots, how consequences were never going to be sufficient enough to keep me sober. You need this, you need to establish a relationship with God is going to be is what's gonna carry you through. And I don't even know if at this point I believe, but this lady was taking me through the book. I believed in her. I believed in her, and I believed in the work we were doing. And we knelt on the phone. And we did that 3rd step prayer. And I immediately that night started to write out my 4-step that night. And I started to write it out, and I got it done fairly quickly. And I can remember going through it, and when all of these people on my list that I was just so upset, so angry at, I never looked any further than just that initial anger. And when I got that down on paper and flipped it over and looked at my mistakes, my faults, where was I selfish, where was I dishonest, where was I to blame, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just don't feel too good. I can remember calling her, like, I was so disgusted with my behavior and the way that I had treated all of these people throughout my entire life that ultimately just loved me and were trying to help me and guide me. But I would have never been able to see that if it wasn't for that inventory. It was a shift in perspective for me. And like I said, I got that done fairly quickly. I was calling Susie, like, I don't feel good. And she's like, it's time, come and let's do 5, 6, and 7. And I got in my car that weekend. So that was March. That was the end of March 27th. And by mid-April, I was driving to North Carolina to do a 5th step with Susie. And I can remember getting to her house and going to her home group with her. And I fell asleep on her couch that night, and I woke up that next morning, and we looked at that inventory, and I was honest with her, and she was honest with me about my behavior. And I mean, she showed me the truth about myself, and I just don't think that anybody had ever been willing to do that with me before. And I can remember going through it, and just at one point when I was telling her about all these things that I had done and my conduct and just the disaster, and she pointed at me, and I mean, she was just telling me about myself, the facts. We were looking at the facts. It wasn't some big crying session. I mean, she was giving it to me. She was telling me straight up exactly who I was and what I was doing. And I felt like at one point I just lifted felt like I just lifted out of my body and came back down on her couch. And I look back on that experience, and I felt like a really big piece of Jana died in that moment. Or at least I wanted to curl up under the couch and die. So we did, we had a list of my character defects, and, you know, all of these things that in that moment, I wish I could have just said, okay, God, take them all, and them all go away. But that's just not the way it works. It's not on my time. But all of these things, ultimately, these character defects is what blocks me away from other people and from being useful towards God. And it's we prayed and laid those at God's feet. And I can remember doing the 7th step prayer, and I can remember asking her, like, is this really gonna work? And she was like, girl, have you been doing Alcoholics Anonymous in China? Like, it's gonna work. And like I said, I believed her. She said, as long as you go out and do God's bidding. And looking back, I was like, from the get-go, like I said, I'd only been sober a month, but I'd already had my license back. She was like, girl, you got a license, like, you've got a car, you can go pick girls up, you can get to your home group early, you can help set up, you can join a committee at your home group. She told me all these things, and I just did them. I would go to the healing place. Ended up being like, they just opened the women's healing place in Richmond, and she was like, that's a great place to go up there and try to be helpful towards people. Take them to AA with you. And I had a minivan at the time, so I'd roll up there with my minivan, and I'd give all these girls my numbers, and they would call me and ask me to come get them. And I was so excited to serve and be of service and go help them out. And I would go and I would give them rides, and I would take them to my home group with me. And in these moments, it was like I got a lot of relief. I mean, the obsession to drink it just left. And when I would go up there and pick these girls up, and before I'd take them back, I'd always pray with them too. And it was like, for that short amount of time, no matter what the day was or what my problem was, I wasn't so consumed with Jana. And that was like such a relief for me. Like, I didn't even realize that Jana was just all I ever thought about until I had an hour during a meeting when I was trying to serve, and I didn't think about Jana for that hour. And it was like, oh my gosh, all I think about, it was crazy, but it was so freeing. And I could never wait to get back and do it again, so that I could not sit at home and think about Jana all the time. And so that's what I did, and that's what I still try to do today. I came home and I set out to do my amends. She gave me 3 amends to do. She gave me 3 amends to do in a week. She said, we'll do an easy one, and we'll do a kind of easy one, and then we'll do a really hard one in a week. And I was like, what? And she's saying, yeah, she's like, girl, you said that you'd be willing to go to Anti-Links and Alcoholics Anonymous, remember? And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right, I did. So, she taught me how to do that. She taught me how to call, so how do I go about doing this? So I would call and I would make appointments with my old employer and different people that I owed amends to, and I would make those appointments, and I would write out my amends before I would go in there, and I would tell them, I was wrong. I would list my defects, and this is what I did. And I would ask them if there was anything that I've left out. And if there was, I was told to keep my mouth shut and let them finish. And when they would finish, I would ask them, is there anything that I can do to make it right? And whatever they said, I would go and I would say okay, and then tell them I hope that over some time you could see a change in me. And every time I would make that appointment, I would call her and we would pray together, and I would go in and I would take God with me, and they would always compliment me on my, how much courage it must have taken, and they would compliment my character for coming up there and doing that, and it was always well received. I mean, my old employer was like, you need to come back and manage, and I was like, no thanks, but how cool. And after making some of those amends, those nights that promises started to come true in my life, and I was starting to see God in God everywhere. I really was. It was so beautiful. And after that, she taught me how to work a 10th step, which keeps me on my phone with my sponsor all the time. Michelle talks to her in the mornings, and I'm like, well, it's a good thing because she's not available at night, because it's just things crop up. I mean, people make me mad, and but I have the tools and a sponsor to be able to walk through those things. And she taught me how to do, if I don't catch everything during the day on that 10th step, a nightly inventory. And she taught me to pray in the mornings and to thank God at night for my sobriety. And that's what I do. It's really, that time is really important in the mornings to carve out for God. And it's not a long meditation. I'm not sitting in my room for hours humming and hawing. It's like, it's very, very short. And she taught me that that was okay. She said, you're not going to help a lot of people if you're just hanging out in your room meditating all day. And so that's what I did. And then I got to step 12, and I've got like 3 months. And she's like, you need to find a sponsee. And I'm like, dude, nobody's gonna want me to sponsor them. I only have 3 months. And I was just totally wrong. I mean, we prayed for God to send me a girl, and that's exactly what God did. I got a girl to read the book back to. And once I started doing that, it was just like everything just started to come to life. It was just like my spirit was starting to awake. And still to this day, when I get a girl and I'm in those fords, I can read, I can feel my spirit continuing to awake. And as a result of those 12 steps, it's a true, I had a spiritual experience. And my life today looks so different. My daughter just is turning 8 next month, and our relationship is so beautiful. She loves to be with Mom, and my husband and I we'll be celebrating 10 years of marriage in August, and our relationship is better than it's ever been. Is it perfect? Is it no. Are we sitting out, sunbathing in the Bahamas every day? No, it's a lot of hard work, but it's better than it's ever been, and I can be helpful. I can contribute. I've got I work at Mechanicsville High School as the parking lot attendant, and I have a golf cart, and I coach the girls basketball team. And I cruise around on campus all day and try to catch the kids skipping school. And I get to coach these girls in basketball. I get to cheer them on and be a part of their high school experience. And I get to be the first one in the locker room after they've had a great game, and the first one on the sideline cheering them on when they make that shot. And it's just such a cool experience, such a gift, and it's because of God and Alcoholics Anonymous, and none of these things would have taken place if it wasn't for God and AA. And my daughter and I, our schedule aligns together because I'm in the school system. So when there's a snow day, we're out together. We get the summers off together, and I get to wake up and take her to school every morning. I couldn't wake up and show up for anything. Not even my own kid. I couldn't. And my life it is just so changed. I can remember being in the parking lot. I had just started working at the school, and I can remember being in the parking lot, and I found a student's wallet. And I pick up the wallet, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, I need to find whose wallet this belongs to. And looking back after a couple of minutes, it was like, I was like, man, like I have changed. I would have been, if I would have found anybody's wallet, it would have been payday and the trash, and I was excited to return this kid's wallet to him. And I did look, and it was a lot of cash. And I was like, my first thought was, he must have cut a lot of grass for this cash. I've got to get this money back to this kid. And I thought, man, that's not Jana. That's being reorganized by the hand of God. And that's a result of the steps. So I can remember, I'll close with a story because I know I'm running out of time. Apologize for being so nervous in the beginning. But I can remember my first year of being sober and working with other girls, and I was walking into my daughter's playroom one day, and at this point she still played with Barbies a little bit this week, but she was playing with Barbies, and she has a big Barbie house, and she's got Mom Barbie, Ken Barbie, like Mom and Dad Barbie, and then little her, right? So before it was like she always had Mom Barbie in the bed, like Mom Barbie's taking a nap, and Dad's was always like up doing all this cool stuff. He's grilling, he's in the car, he's taking the dog out, and Mom's always in the bed. And I walked in one day, and she said, "Mama, come here, look." And I go in there, and Mama had gotten out of the bed, and Mom was sitting at a little Barbie table, and there was another Barbie girl across the table, and there was a book in between them. And she said, "Look, Mama's helping somebody." And I just couldn't believe it. And that's God working in my life and in my family's life, and it's been it's just such a gift, and it's been such a beautiful thing, and I can't wait to experience what God has in store next. Thank you.